It's an immense pleasure to have both of you. Let's start, please, about introducing ourselves personally before talking about work and about what we do for careers. Let's talk about our personal journeys. Would we let the ladies start, Matthias? Yes.
Of course.
Bitte?
Thank you so much. Mark, what would you like to know about
Your personal journey. What brought you to be where you are today?
Yes, I started my professional life as a journalist and my personal life in northern Germany. Since then, I've moved around a bit, have been living a lot in northern Germany, but also in Paris. And right now I'm living in Switzerland. As I said, I started to work as a journalist, moved from there towards PR and marketing, which is not a good thing for journalists. No, we want to report and not to sell, but I really enjoyed this. And I love to be an entrepreneur, which I've been doing several times in my life. Today, I have my own consultancy company, and I'm grateful every day for this job.
Great. Anything more personal? Sons, daughters, children, cats and dogs, whatever?
No cat, no dog, but a wonderful Siamese living still in northern Germany, in beautiful Hamburg. It's always the competition in Germany, Matthias, right? So whether Berlin or Hamburg is the most beautiful city. So he lives there as a developer, and no cat.
Great, amazing. Thank you very much. Matthias, up to you. Your personal journey. What brought you to be today who you are?
Yeah. So I made the wise choice to study political economics, which has nothing to do with business administration or companies and the likes. But I got introduced by political economics into the concept of interdisciplinary studies. That means I studied economy, I studied law, public law, and social science. And most of those studies look at one problem from different angles. And that's kind of helped me to then understand a little bit more how to solve complex problems for organizations. And so when I started to figure out how companies work, I really fall in love with recruitment and started to tackle my recruitment career there. And then half of my journey in my profession is as an individual recruiter. The other half is as a leader. And now I'm a senior director talent for a Series B IoT deep tech startup in Berlin.
Amazing. Thank you very much for this. All right. If you allow me, I'd like to start with a question for Bärbel. Bärbel, talking about leaders and talking about your work with leadership, how can leaders today, I'm talking about today in the context of today, in the aftermath of the COVID-19 and in the very troubled world in which we live with the war, unfortunately, to the east of Europe, how can leaders effectively use executive presence to inspire trust and engagement while driving AI adoption within their organization?
What a wonderful question, Mark. So the leaders that I regularly work with are amazing, inspiring people, very talented, obviously. And some of them I feel do not use the full potential to transmit a message, to have impact by maybe not knowing completely how to use and live executive presence. So if we talk about executive presence, this is a whole package of having an impact on your surrounding, showing people just by your appearance, by the way you talk, the way you present, that you have knowledge, experience, a vision, what kind of person you are, what a leader you are, so that people really like to buy in and that they get your message. So you asked the question how to connect this with AI. So you're right, Mark.
Absolutely. A question for Matthias, if you allow me. Matthias, there are a lot of challenges today when we're talking about leveraging AI and data. But in your opinion, what are the biggest or the toughest challenges and maybe the opportunities in leveraging AI and data, especially if we're talking about building a global talent strategy and how organizations can stay ahead of the curve?
Yeah. Can you hear me well? Better now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. So I think AI is a topic that is multidimensional when it comes to what you need to be aware of, but also what are the opportunities and risk. The first one is to assess how is the appetite in your company to use AI. A lot of people underestimate this because there might be people that argue, well, I don't know, I don't really see the use case of AI now. And so if you implement this in your talent practices, but nobody else is using in your company AI, this implementation of AI will be harder. Now, of course, if you have executive buy-in and everybody is so obsessed about using AI in their practices, in their business, and so on, then of course the application or the implementation of AI practices in the talent strategy is much better. So, but long story short, I think the challenges, maybe to focus on this, the challenges are still that the technology is there, but what are the real use cases? And what are the use cases under GDPR and the European UI Act, right? Because I do think, especially for talent and HR practices, you can clearly see that you need to be very careful of what to do there in terms of decision making, right? So it always needs to be a human element. It cannot be AI only. Thinking about screening applications, for example. Yeah. Another thing is that what we are kind of used to as recruiters now is AI and transcribing interviews, note taking, submitting scorecards and the likes. This is also something that has a huge benefit now. I think the use case is there, but then it's also about decision making. So how much of AI needs to facilitate decision making in the organization? What is there? How good are we with data analysis? Because our data is most of the time in companies very fragmented and it's and then not harmonized. So using AI on top of that is not going to solve the data analysis topic. So you need to actually have a certain structure in place in order to allow AI to actually excel.
Absolutely. Bärbel, please feel free whenever you wish to jump actually on anything that you hear, whether it is Matthias or myself. Otherwise, I have a question for you. Would you like to comment on what Matthias has just said?
Actually, I would be really interested, Matthias, to know where you personally see the biggest impact or advantage in using AI in your business.
So, for example, if you imagine that that you have interviews that you do with people, then most of the time what happens is you keep on writing things down, right? Because you remember them, you have maybe a structure. Having AI that does this automatically and then analyzes this for you. So you, after an interview, already know, okay, this was the context of the information and the conversation, and then I need to maybe course correct it, give my own 2 cents to this, and then have a decision in how, if I like that candidate or not, will fast track so much more by remembering how we did it in the old days, where it's like, hey, you know what? What was this person again? What was this candidate again? Oh, I remember they said this, but this is your memory that serves you. So your decision making is rather poor than anything else. And I think this is which is a great use case from an interactional. You make your interaction with people more meaningful and you're more precise in the assessment.
Absolutely, it's focus.
Great. Okay. Bärbel, I have a question for you. How could grassroots initiatives and small-scale projects be used to implement AI strategies successfully in businesses of varying sizes? And here, I really want to stress that for maybe medium and bigger companies, this might be way less of a challenge than very, very small companies with very small budgets.
Yeah, I think this is an excellent way. So definitely you need an AI strategy in a company. We agree on this, and management needs to agree and bring this forward. But I think to start, because it's so overwhelming and people are so on so different levels with their experience on AI, it's, in my experience, the fastest and the best thing to start with very small initiatives. You bring together people cross-departmental, different experience. They just love to be part of it. They just want to try it. And once they start to think about use cases, they start to implement some use cases. Then colleagues will be curious to see what is going on. And you have a very natural and organic and motivating growth of AI. Whereas if you come with a big top-down strategy, then you have so much fear for some people, a lot of discussion, who is first, what should we do, etc., etc. So these grassroots initiatives normally bring a huge push to the company and a big acceptance between the employees, and it's really motivating. They enjoy testing, trying, and building this up.
Except when they are afraid that maybe you are replacing them.
Yeah, it's a wonderful example that Matthias was just given in. It's really to take off some workload off your shoulders. Like, for example, not writing meeting minutes anymore, exactly the use case we just had. But you could also be so much more reactive to your customers, internal or external, with chatbots. If you put all your company's knowledge, error solution knowledge into AI-driven solution, people don't need to wait until tickets are answered and maybe not answered correctly. They have very fast interaction, which makes, both internal as external customers really happy. But we have to be honest. AI will take away jobs, but I see as many jobs that are recreated and needed also on another hand.
So you would agree this is mostly a training matter in a lot of companies, correct?
Yeah, it's a training and a mind-changing matter, and you have to deal with fear and newbies on the topic. So really to embrace the whole employees, to bring them up to speed and help them to discover.
I completely understand. If I may, I would have another question still for Bärbel, and that's about how organizations actually integrate AI-driven leadership strategies while maintaining a people-first culture.
AI, in my opinion, can make companies and individuals better and faster, but it never really works when you replace the human interaction. So imagine you have this 27-hour colleague who is at your side, who knows everything, who helps you, who assists you, who makes you personally better, faster. But leadership, interaction with colleagues, you cannot and you should not replace this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Matthias, in your opinion and experience, what practical steps can talent leaders take to secure a seat at the executive table and include and influence actually strategic decisions?
Yeah, I think let's start with the obvious, which is workforce planning. I so many times see that people do headcount planning, but not workforce planning, which is a big issue. Why? Because in the last 10 to 15 years, most of the people looked at full-time employees and not so much contractors, freelancers. Do I need a project for this? Do I need to ramp this up, or do I need a full-time employee? So I think from a talent strategic perspective, it's build, bite, or borrow, and plus another dimension, which is called bot, right? So can I actually automate this? Can I use technology in order to do this instead of, letting other people do the job? So to a certain extent, that is something that I have seen that people don't do well. And there's a lot of room for impact, especially if you also think as an organization in terms of I can get all the people around the world, but what does that do to my OPEX? Yeah. So
Yes.
people don't how would I say this without being offensive here, but like you can get certain quality of talent for a much cheaper price in other regions because as it is in economies, right, a price is not always the same around the world, right? So it's a question of demand and supply, and also people have different cultures, different attitudes, different economies, and cost of living is different. And so really mapping this out and really making sure that you as an organization know where to get which talent from, and then how to use them to your advantage is strategic and competitive advantage to my belief. And another thing is that we always say this is not just hiring, but as a talent leader, it's also about upskilling, right? It's also about how do I get the talent. So many times we talk about the purple squirrel, which means that purple squirrel actually means, oh, I look at the perfect person. That does not exist, right? But if you know what you need and what is nice to have and how you train people to get to their stage, this will help us to actually then, make them or set them up for success much faster. And I think these days right now, these are opportunities to help executive teams to say, these are my projects, these are my goals I want to achieve. How can you help me, Matthias, to get me the right talents in order to facilitate this? And this might mean in Germany a different set of success than it means in Latin, than it means in the US, than it means maybe in the Philippines or Brazil or wherever you want to look at, yeah?
Absolutely. Bärbel, do you agree with this? Do you agree that setting people on the right training does increase significantly their chance of success and the chances that the AI implementation in a company would succeed?
Oh, definitely. I mean, besides know-how, there is the mindset that you want to build something really, really groundbreaking new, that you understand to adapt what sometimes was already difficult with digitization, that people took the same processes and just did it the digital way instead of reinventing. And I think with the AI implementation, you have again a huge chance, and it is needed to rethink your business.
Amazing. Okay, I got a question for both of you. I really would like to hear both perspectives. How do you deal with resistance? When you go to a company, you have a mission, and then people actually are against the project. They just don't want to work with you. Let's start with Matthias this time.
Sure. So resistance. Yeah, resistance is change fatigue, right? Or not knowing how to facilitate or embrace change, or you see this in startups and scale-ups most of the time when you start with seed round, series A, B, C, D. Every new level of investment and every new step in a company growth will you will need better talent or different talents than the talents that you needed to begin with, right? So there is pretty much on every stage of company growth a different set of talents needed. So what I'm trying to say here is it is all about understanding or letting people know what's in for me. So what's in for me from an executive level if I do this change? What's in for me as a person that is involved? Could be the manager, could be the employee. And then make this as meaningful as possible. We see this in smaller organizations that we have quite a lot of change, and that people are so much in love with the status quo. So how do we help them to get to that next stage and adapt? And I think it is communication. It is explaining precisely why we need to do this and if it's needed or not, and then having buy-in from people. But as you know, the rule of thumb is like you need to explain it 7 times until it sticks. It cannot just be, oh, I just told you so. Oh, hey, this is just an email, and then you believe that it's there. No, it's really something that you need to iterate on day-to-day basis to drive change. And it's also something where I would say you can practice this, right? You can upskill people. So one of the things that I think is really important is learning agility. Yeah. So for me, honestly, if you learn faster than anyone else, then you most of the time don't need to know everything, but you can adapt faster. You can apply this, right? And so many times when you drive change in organizations, what I keep on seeing, and I hope this really will be the past in the future, is, oh, a big corporate like I don't know, like Zalando did it, or a big corporate like Deutsche Bahn did it. So we need, or Google did it, or N26 did it. Like this does not make sense. Yeah. So don't copy and paste approaches. I think the problem that we have with change is that we don't go into the problem solution space. Like, is this really the root cause? What is my environment here? What is my culture here? Do I understand these dimensions in order to then customize in a way and apply it in a way of what the environment is, and not just say, but everybody else did it like this, so that's why we need to do it, right? And I think here is where the biggest misunderstanding is when it comes to driving change forward, that people don't apply, do not care too much, do not do an audit or a discovery journey in order to actually bring this or to understand the situation well enough in order to then drive forward.
Absolutely amazing insights.
I don't know if you guys can still hear it.
We can, but there is some echo.
I don't know what happened on this.
Please use your headset. Your headset would be very helpful.
I do, and the camera went off, and I have no idea why.
It's okay. Restart and rejoin. That's fine. Restart and rejoin. I have another question for Matthias. Matthias, talking about employer branding. How do you see the role of employer branding evolving in the age of digital transformation and especially remote work? You know, everybody want to work from home.
Look, I feel like it needs to evolve. Why? Because I think we never really nailed it to begin with. And why do I say this? Is I think if you look around at companies these days and you look at their very nice branding, these great pictures, like it seems like every company is diverse, so we literally don't have a diversity issue at all. Everybody has great people. I think this is something where I think we are mistaken. And by that, I mean, we are mistaken in the sense that we are creating images that are not very much aligned with the real truth of organizations. Yeah. So this is a first problem. Yeah. And the second problem is that I do think that in employer branding, we are actually narrowing down our messaging to a specific target group, right? So not everybody works well with us in a company. Not everybody is maybe that nerdy or that innovative or that data driven or is actually capable of dealing with a lot of change. So we need to be more honest in our messaging to then really say, look, half of the people that I send out this message maybe don't like this. And this is good, right? Because I just want to address certain kind of people that then apply, that are really bought into, hey, I can deal with this. This is fine for me. This is an environment that works for me. And then let's be more honest to each other, right? And then I think then it's easier for everyone, because I do think that sometimes employer brand people had that idea of, we need to actually attract everyone. And that is totally wrong. That is the worst case that could ever happen. So really, this is something that I think needs to be done to begin with. And then as a second thing, it's about being also honest about remote work or hybrid or off in the office. Yeah. Because honestly speaking, I think we have seen in the pandemic this dream of I can work anywhere in the world. Well, no, per default, that's not true, because you do social security fraud, you harm economies in different environments. And I do think that we also see a downturn of remote opportunities now, where, people ask their people to be more in the office. Now, I don't jump into any side of saying you have to be in the office as the right way versus you can work remote. It very much depends to your culture. What kind of culture do you have? Are you used to, did the company grow being in the office? And this is where most of your senior people, enjoy doing that, and they have a hard time to go remote. Then they don't need to be remote. But then the consequence of this is I might not get as much access to great talent because they will not relocate or they will not be in the office. So the question is here a little bit, how do you play this? How are you aware as an organization what that means if I go this one way or the other way, right? And I think it has become a political debate. And why is this so difficult? Because we have so many generations in a workforce now, with the baby boomers literally who were very present the last decades fading out. And suddenly you have so many different needs, demands, expectations to jobs that are so different that it's super hard to combine them.
Thank you very much for sharing this, Matthias. Bärbel, I would like, first of all, to go one step back, please, and to ask you about resistance. When you go to a company, a lot of people, I know what I'm doing. I know what I've been doing for the past 10 years. I'm afraid of you because you might be here actually to fire me or to make me redundant, or actually you want to bring something that I don't know how to use. So people resist and they try not to help you. How do you deal with this?
I think what very often is behind of people resist is that they are afraid to show that they do not know yet, or that they're just overwhelmed of so many things that are changing that it becomes very difficult to handle. So I try to go slowly. If I've been talking about these AI implementation initiatives, my best experience is to really take it easy, to come with a surprise, with a aha effect on something that those people are close to. Last week, I gave a workshop to a board of a company to get some foundations of AI, and some people were like, "Oh, we have so many other things to do. We don't see going into this right now, and let this be with IT." And I said, "No, you need to look into it, as this is a very important strategic and change topic." And some of them were not really open for this. So I knew this beforehand, and I brought them a song. So I started the workshop with a song. And then right at the moment, they were like, "Oh, the song is about us." They recognized the text. And they, "Well, you're crazy. What have you done?" So this was, of course, an AI composed song on their topics they are just dealing with. And the atmosphere changed. They had a good laugh. And then they said, "Really, you can do such things?" So I just played around with them, showing things that are possible for those who are not used to it, who didn't discover yet. And then normally you can catch people and go more seriously into business topics.
Amazing.
Mark, if you allow, I would just like to ask one question to Matthias. I found it.
Please, of course, please. You know what, honestly, I need to attend to something unexpected. So guys, I'll leave you on your own for 2 minutes and I'll come back. Please, catch up.
Okay. Let's take over, Matthias. Okay. I agree with Alego.
Yeah, that's because I unmuted myself. But go ahead.
Okay. Matthias, you were just talking about this, how you don't need to reach everybody in the company, maybe with some initiatives. And I didn't get the full topic because I had some technical time out. What I am actually currently thinking a lot about is that there is companies, but there's also individuals, employees, who are enthusiasts going into the AI adventure, and there are some who have pretty much no idea and feel a bit anxious or feel a bit against it. And I think AI will not go away from our workplaces. The opposite will be the case. So how do you think we can embark and reach those people, individuals, as much as executives, as leaders, to be open-minded and to go into all of these new topics?
Yeah, good question. So honestly, I would say that I would encourage everyone personally to just try it out yourselves, like with ChatGPT, for example, right? Or try to understand how you consume knowledge or how do you learn, right? So maybe you go to your HBR newsletter, or you watch webinars, or you kind of just spend 30 minutes every week to read about it, to learn about it, or to try it out in the best case, right? Because I do think then with actively using it and trying to figure it out, you will clearly see the advantages and disadvantages, and at least you get a little bit of an appetite, right? Honestly, also network with your peers. So maybe your anxiety is something that is not only you, but other people as well. But there are other people who are not and who are willing to share about these practices. So I do think the more you are connected, the more information you consume, and the more you maybe even try it out on your own, it will help you to bridge this gap of, hey, I will do it and I will get a little bit of a sense, but in my own pace, right? I think it's very important that when we have seen in the pandemic and when the hype started, that you had literally every day a new information about AI. And of course, this is overwhelming. This was overwhelming for so many people. And I would also say, somebody in my podcast mentioned this recently, they said, we are all AI beginners. So there are no experts, like literally people who are just saying they have nailed it. They did not, right? They're just telling you a story, and that's why they do it. But what helps me, and maybe this helps me because I have been always in the tech industry my whole life and my whole career, is that I talk to founders that are building AI products and trying to understand what is their way of thinking, how do they do this, what are the challenges, and you keep on having those conversations because that will enlighten you to a certain extent. And I do think AI is it's still a tool, right? So that means it depends a lot of the user. So the user is you, and if you have a critical thinking approach, or you challenge a little bit because you know what you are asking AI to say, I can estimate and understand that maybe that is not as great because it's not a search engine. It's something that it's a language learning model, right? And a language learning model is just predicting what are the likelihoods of words that appear, nothing else. It's not that, in that sense, intelligent, but you can train it. And if you train it, then it becomes very intelligent. And I think this is something where you can play around with this. And last note is prompt engineering. It's similar to interviewing, right? Everybody can interview someone, but actually the outcome is asking the right questions, right? And that is a technique, and that's a skill, and that's prompt engineering. This is how I explain it to myself. And this actually is then the reason of how you then really leverage technology, because no matter AI or not, technology has been around for a very long time, but most of the time it failed because people did not know how to use it, implement it, and apply it. And that has happened also before AI, right? So it's literally the same thing, but people need to be getting a taste of it and eager and learn in their own pace, right? Don't feel pressure. I think if you learn the step by step, and if you keep on reading 30 minutes every week, then you might get a knowledge over a certain period of time that is much more in depth than some other people, right? But you just need to do it, like Nike said, right? Just do it. The powerful word is just. Yeah.
I had an amazing experience with a 89 and a 90-year-old couple, and I showed them what AI can do, and they were absolutely mind blown. but very open. They both don't use or have a computer and don't manage to really work with a smartphone. But we try together. And I mean, at this age, you just need to be open-minded and go and try and play and to discover exactly as you say, just go for it. This is why I believe so much in these grassroots initiatives. Start small, take it in a playful way, and then scale rapidly.
Yeah, no, I am totally. And age has nothing to do with it, right? So many people tend to stereotype people, oh, the older people might struggle with this further. No, it's a mindset topic. It has nothing to do with age. And I do think this is something where I still remember when I was young, when I realized that I'm behind certain technology trends and I do not understand this, then I'll be like, oh, maybe I'm already losing out here. But it's very funny. You can ask people, how does your LinkedIn algorithm or your newsfeed work? And people already struggle with this. They don't know how it works and they complain it's LinkedIn. But actually, it's themselves. It's the way of how many connections you have. How do you leverage your network, and based on that you get the information. And everybody's like, oh, it's LinkedIn, and then it's most of the time the people that are like, yeah, but you have 30,000 connections where you probably just know 2 or 3% of it, so then you complain that your newsfeed is broken. Well,
yeah.
yes.
Actually, AI makes it very simple to learn new things. You do not need to be this super technical expert anymore.
Matthias, in your experience, what are the most common barriers that leaders face when they are trying to implement organizational transformation? And what are the best solutions? What are your best tips for those?
So barriers is probably starts with the people itself, and by that I mean if you never know how to transform companies or do proper change management, you have never done this before, of course you're going to struggle, right? Because it's new to you. And now what I see, especially for executives or founders, it's that at one point when you build the company to a certain stage, you need to let go and trust experts that you have hired. And letting go for founders or managers and trusting people. I mean, trust is a big word, but that's something that is a bit of a challenge. I have seen and I have noticed. So it's this trust topic, and it starts with yourself. It's also this leading by example, understanding that as an executive, you're not a subject matter expert anymore. You're a leader. You influence culture. You influence decision making. So it's much more than your area and your focus that you've been used to, where you worked in the past, or when your company was 20 or 30 people. That's another one. And I do think, in general speaking, it's how do you, for me, this is very important. It's called psychological safety. What do I mean by that is, in order to actually drive change, the worst thing that can happen to you is that nobody tells you about their failures. So if people fail, you want to learn fast, right? If nobody speaks up on their failures, then you don't know what the problems are, and then you cannot fix them, right? So in establishing a culture where people are willing to share and open up and say, oh, I think that was me, then it's good, because then you kind of reiterate, create lessons learned, and then based on the learning approach, you are faster in adapting, and then you don't make the same mistake twice. I think this is really key for organizations. You always make mistakes. We're human beings. We will make mistakes, but the topic is we need to learn from them, and not as a human being, but as an organization. And organizational learning is super, super hard, because it takes a lot of different people with the same mindset in the same direction to course correct their mistakes, because it starts again with egos, right? Oh, I'm always right. Oh, I'm the executive, or I'm, the senior VP, whatever. This has a lot to do with themselves but also as an organization, as an organism, to actually handle this, because you depend on people. You cannot do it alone, right? And I think this is something, again, letting go in creating this psychological safety is key for organizations to drive change forward.
Amazing. Bärbel, I really would like to hear you on this. So I just asked Matthias, actually, in his experience, what are the most common challenges that leaders face when they are trying to implement organizational transformation, and what his best tips for fixing those are. And among others, he said something that I think is very noteworthy. And he said CEOs are not anymore subject matter experts. Actually, they are leaders, and they are supposed to lead the whole company at a much higher level. What's your take on this?
Well, this is definitely very true, and I would share this view. But I think in general, subject matter experts are not always the best leaders. I think it's a very good thing, and I speak out of own experience. When I had many years ago, without any technological background, I became the production leader of a manufacturing company. And this was actually my first role in leadership, where I was not the subject matter expert. And this taught me so much about leadership. And maybe it was the greatest position in this company for me, for myself, for my own journey, because you need to focus on leading, and you need to focus on strategy. You need to focus on people, on communication. So it's not a bad thing if you're not at the top of the subject matter.
And what do you think about what Matthias mentioned, actually, that a lot of CEOs, they have a tendency to kind of micromanage employees rather than trusting them?
I don't know if I can share this view. Certainly there is CEOs like this, but I see a lot in my day-to-day, where I see a lot of CEOs who have a lot of trust to their employees. It's rather, as we spoke about technology, etc., sometimes you need to convince or keep them up to date what is currently important and where they need to look at, to who they need to listen at, what level of information they need. But actually, I see a lot of CEOs who, for me, are very inspiring and trusting their colleagues.
Yeah. But yes, not only in Germany, but all over the world, actually, a lot of companies complain about the fact that they have difficulty in retaining global workforce, difficulty in retaining talent. And my question to you is the following. If we're talking about data-driven decision-making in HR, what role does data-driven decision-making play in identifying and in retaining top talent in the global workforce?
Yeah. So let's talk about the very common and maybe the wrong practices in retaining talent. One of the things that I keep on seeing most of the time is that people want to leave the company, and then they get a higher pay or a better role.
Yes.
And these are the wrong reasons for retaining talent, because you might keep them another 3 to 6 months, but literally they're almost out of the door already. So, and this is an indicator where they are reactive but not proactive, right? So what means then proactive retention strategies are you check in with your people? Do they have a career progression? Can they learn on the job? Can they fix the most important problems in the organization to create impact? And everybody is different, right? I think a lot of times we see from a design perspective that, and this goes back to Bärbel, what she said about subject matter experts, is we used to promote, Peter principle here, promote subject matter experts to their level of incompetence, because that's the only way to promote people. But that's not good. You need to have multiple different career tracks for people to give them a choice that I can grow in my company, but don't take over the leadership role, right? Because to be a leader, you need to actually be be exceeding in core skills, as we call social skills, right? And you need to be willing to adapt and learn all the time and have a rather low ego. But so many times, a lot of people don't have this per default. They are rather overconfident than competent in that sense, especially with leaders. And that is something that will hinder this whole journey, right? And from a data-driven perspective now, what does that mean? Understanding when people are on this journey of, well, do I have everything I need here to actually create impact? Do I have everything to develop myself further? Instead of waiting until they are so upset that they say, okay, it's been 2 years now, I'm going to leave, right? I think I still remember when I was practicing recruiting, an average tenure of software engineers was 18 months. 18 months, right? So that means they have stayed at least 1 or 2 performance cycles, yeah? And then it went all sideways because then they probably asked, hey, I would love to go to this conference. Hey, I would love to take this certificate. Hey, I would love to work on this project. And suddenly they get a no, or this is not possible here, or we don't do this here, right? And so, and this is something that I would say, if you want to keep talent, keep them for the right reasons by helping them to grow. And for me, it's always the two sides effect. If the business grows and succeeds, people need to grow and succeed. And if this is a win-win, you're good. But if you torture people for the company's success, that's not going to work. And vice versa, if the company is doing bad, but people exceed in their career, also not good. It needs to be a value exchange, a win-win situation.
A win-win situation. Bärbel, how can leaders, in your experience, and especially what you see in consultations around Germany and Switzerland now, I guess, how can leaders encourage collaboration and innovation within teams when they are navigating major technological shifts?
Do you give me 1 second just to respond to what Matthias just said?
Of course, please. Of course, go ahead.
I love this. I would really like to advocate that. I think much more attention needs to be driven to what people really want. And I have the feeling, or I have the experience, I see that very talented subject matter experts, often, as you say, they are promoted to lead. And they have no clue, or maybe they don't even like this. For now more than 10 years, I'm teaching in a private MBA college for engineers who want to get this part of business administration knowledge. And we take a lot of time to look with them together. What is what you are really burning for? What is what you like to go for? And is it just the career as we define success? Because then you get a leader and you're promoted. And some people just don't like this. They just like to be a subject matter expert, and they are needed. So I would like that companies hear this too. There's not only the career path of becoming a team leader, manager, etc.
And maybe another dimension that we need to talk about here is it's not just career growth that keeps people, or learning opportunities that keeps people. It's also when you look at an employee life cycle or a career life cycle, people get older, people start families, people need more flexibility. And so not growing doesn't mean that they're not high performing, but growing also means for them, okay, I probably not gonna work 60, 80 hours. And let's maybe start to, why is that 80 hours a week actually a level of performance? Because it's not. It actually showcases that this person has their job not under control, because the people who do this in 30 or 40 hours, they are the ones that we need to look at if they achieve the same outcome. Compared to the ones that take 60 or 80 hours. But, so there are also a lot of these opportunities. Or remember back in the days, this was really a common thing. So just imagine I meet my fiance or my partner not in Berlin, but maybe in Switzerland, Spain, Italy, or wherever, and I can still do my job in Italy or Spain because the company allows that to me and gives me the flexibility, that goes a long way. That actually builds trust. That actually builds commitment because I can take my personal matters and still be part of this company and can add value by having a choice and don't have to actually leave an organization, right? And so I think these are opportunities here to keep people, right?
Thank you very much for both of you. Very, very insightful. Very insightful. Thank you very much. Bärbel, may I go back, please, to my question? So I was asking you about leaders and how they could actually support collaboration and innovation and encourage that within teams, especially when we are talking about big, major technological shifts, like, say, for example, big ERP project.
Yes. I think it's a good thing to create small teams who are ready to discover. They don't need to be the expert in the new technology already, but some people who get time and who get space to discover. Then you need, if it comes to ERP implementation, of course, you need the subject matter experts to line up all of the processes that are in the company. But then please use the opportunity to review, to question mark all of those processes and to recreate by having the knowledge, discovering the new technology, and then rethinking your processes to really restart to use this new start. If it comes to AI and such technologies as we were discussing before, then again, create kind of a lab, your AI internal lab, a playground for people who can try and test things. And start small, grow it big and fast.
Amazing. Matthias, if you allow me, I would like to go back to when we started the discussion about AI and how it can be used actually in HR. And I would say, from what you hear from professionals, what are top ethical considerations of using AI in HR?
Well, the biggest starts with who are the people who actually built AI. It's unfortunately white male, very privileged people. So per default, and then on top of that, now this is just one dimension. The other dimension is they use then the data, the training data, on fragmented data that is highly biased, and then this whole thing goes sideways. So that's already per default something in AI that is broken. Yeah. But there are wonderful initiatives around the world. So who actually give minority or people with minority backgrounds the opportunity to build AI themselves, right? So actually give them exposure to build products that then per default might be a bit more inclusive than the normal AI. But let's go back to HR in general. I think decision making in recruitment, right? So if there's no human being anymore, and if we believe the hype and there's no recruiter anymore, that you have no human touch point, and you literally, after doing certain amount of tests, you then get a contract, and then you can sign that, and you have never talked to a person. Not sure if that will ever fly in Europe, especially not in Europe. I don't think this will happen, but there are processes that exist already like that, and they work like that, especially also in the blue collar area. So that is one concern. I think another concern is that people are, so maybe it's concern of companies, right? So candidates nowadays use also AI, right? It's not just the perspective of companies being the only ones that are leveraging technology. The candidates do this as well, and so I don't mind, honestly, but like the poor decision that most of the companies take is, oh, if somebody uses AI, let's just reject them. But I actually would love to work with people that use AI to leverage their skills. So what I don't want to do is create a software where I see somebody use the AI. I actually want to have a conversation how people leverage AI to solve problems than they used to compared to when they used to. And that is actually something that is interesting. So kind of changing a little perspective, because if you still look at cover letters and people write cover letters, amazing cover letters with AI, the problem are not the people. The problem is that you need a cover letter to actually apply for a role. So it's the same thing with the resume. I could go on for this, but that would completely break this podcast here or this webinar. But resumes are the wrong document to actually understand what people are capable of. Yeah. And the world we know right now, how it works, how companies work, will change so drastically that nothing fits into a resume that showcases all the skills that people have. Yeah, because in the end of the day, in 10 to 15 years from now, people will have careers that are independent from companies. You already see this now. And that will completely crash this whole system of, oh, we need resumes. We all need it in one pager. Not going to happen, right? And I think the earlier to adapt to those changes, the more you can leverage this and then you can use this, right? But I think if you're stuck in your ways and you do like you did it 15 to 20 years ago, it will break.
What does the future look like then for you?
For me,
Right. Yeah. I mean, in terms of CV, cover letters,
well,
and all of this replaced.
yeah, this is very easy. So you have a job and you just give your name, your email address, and then say maybe, okay, I'm located in Berlin or I'm located here and there. And if this all works out, then you get a test sent by, look, this is the role, this is what you do, please do this test, and then we decide if we interview you or not. Yeah. So literally unbiased, the whole, like, because with CVs, there are so many biases that literally per default will make the bad decision, and we are unable to actually select the right talent. So by looking into what can you actually do with the skills that you have, and then extract that out of this, this will be the future. So yes, you will probably need a resume for due diligence or compliance reasons, but you hand in the resume once you signed the offer. And everything else will be done through a proper assessment. And this is something that is super annoying for me. The academia, the IO psychology has proved it for 50, 60, 70 years that years of working experience is not a predictor of future job performance. Why are we so obsessed with, oh, you have done this 10 years? So what? You can still be bad in your job if you don't know what you are doing, and you have proven this for 10 years. So where's look, and this is like, as I said, these data points have been proven for 40, 50, 60 years now, and still nobody considers this. And in recruitment, this is bizarre. This is far from being rational and logic and smart. This is actually ignoring everything that we know about human being and how they develop and how performance looks like, and then still complain that recruitment is broken. Well, because it's not recruitment that is broken. The people who are in recruitment break recruitment. That is the problem. Yeah. And this is something that is annoying.
Yeah, love it.
Absolutely.
The world is changing. Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to look forward, not backward.
It's really impressive to see the energy that Matthias actually radiates when he talks about those matters, and you can see how unhappy he is about like people going against very well established science.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me why it's so irrational. Let's put it like that.
I think, frankly, a lot of what we see today in the HR schema is simply old habits, like people who saw other people doing things this way, and then they kind of forget everything they have received in education, and they just think like what we have studied is what we have studied, and now in practice, this is how things are done. And indeed, they go back to the same questions that you mentioned, and even, frankly, if I may say, much worse, they start like asking for a picture on the CV, which, is illegal in countries like the UK, for example. But the questions that I raise sometimes when I hear this is, why do you want to see my picture on the CV? How does that influence my performance on the job?
It's even worse if they use social media to understand who you are. Yeah. Oh, I saw you on Instagram. They also go or LinkedIn, and now I know who you are. You don't.
I think I read recently a survey that says 97% of employers today, they have somebody who checks your profile on LinkedIn and on social media to have an idea of who you are and how you talk and what you write and what you talk about.
I mean, I don't mind LinkedIn because it's a professional network, right? And you're actually explaining your career there, right? I don't mind that, but honestly, in my whole career as a recruiter, I first of all never had time to actually go through the resume and say, "Oh, this is the person. Now let's look for them on social media." Because most of the time I had like 100, 200, 300 resumes to go through, and what the common knowledge is that recruiters maximum have 30 seconds to 2 minutes for one resume. Everything else would be crazy and would not be scalable, right? And I think this is something that people need to be reminded. Like if recruiters have 15 to 20 minutes for one resume, we need hundreds and hundreds of recruiters if this would be really the case. Yeah.
But actually, what I heard from many is that this comes as the next step. Like this social media profiling of a candidate does not happen at the first level. Actually, it happens maybe to the last 5 candidates, and you have tools that do that. So it's not a human being who goes manually and visits the profiles of every single person, but they have tools that actually go and scan social media and give you a profile about this person.
Yeah, and this is first of all highly illegal, and second of all, you will not get the right data out of it, right? Because you assume that how you behave online is how you behave in reality, and we all know how much of a hell social media is. So I don't think the humans are that bad. I hope. I don't know.
As you certainly also have tested those tools. Yeah, they're there for recruitment, for sales, for all of this. Analyze a LinkedIn profile, and really, I was shocked of some results I saw.
Okay. If I go back, if you allow me to talking about how you guys coach leaders in companies and how you accompany actually and coach people who come to you asking for help. If I'm asking, for example, about leaders that come to you saying, I don't know whether this should be a top-down decision where I impose my authority and actually I play my role as the CEO of the company and I just take a decision and I just tell people that they have to follow, or if I should adopt a grassroots innovation, grassroots initiative where I let actually people from the lowest layers of the employment scale come with suggestions, and then we start actually going through those, selecting, implementing, norming, performing. How do you guys manage such or coach actually such leaders who are wondering if a specific initiative should be a top-down or a grassroots initiative?
For me,
Shall we start with Bärbel?
Yeah, it's a bit difficult to answer this in a general way because this depends very much the culture, the situation, and also the topic. I repeat myself with the example of implementing AI, starting to use AI. And definitely, and I think this would be true for most of the companies I can think of, to start with rather small initiatives and bring joy and fun to the people and then find the good use cases and drive them driven by people. But if you think of other topics, of course, you need to do this top down. This is very clear. This is not a democracy.
Matthias, do you agree?
Yeah, as Bärbel said, it depends a bit on the topic, right? I think if it's a huge, major, and very impactful decision, maybe transition of a company, then of course it has to be top down, because you cannot change a company without any executive buy-in, so to speak. But like you can still, I'm a huge fan of trialing things out, A/B testing, and I think these are more grassroots initiatives in order to say, don't ask for permission, but ask for forgiveness, right? Later, if you maybe screw it up. But it depends if it's like something where you be like, look, I want to try some new KPIs or some new data points. And without any harm and not changing the actual system, I just run an A/B test on the side to see if it actually gets more insightful. And then you trial it and then you explain it and pitch it to the organization and on to the decision maker to apply certain things. So it depends a bit how granular and how big you want to change or innovate and transition certain things. And this is how I would then coach leaders to say, this can be something that can be tested, or hey, this is something we need to actually run by the big guys or big girls, big leaders in the organization to say, look, they need to have that buy-in there because honestly speaking, this has a dimension and it maybe also has an influence in terms of money, right? So are we talking here, it's a difference between 3 to 5K or 50K or 100K or, a couple of millions? Well, then, I think the answer is obvious.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for sharing this. We don't have a lot of time. I still have maybe one question to each of you, and then I would end up actually with a statement. Maybe I'll start with Bärbel. What strategies, in your experience, can leaders use to ensure once they have taken the decision and once they have found a strategy of how actually AI would serve them for real in their company, like AI implementation with a real business case that is validated, how can they make sure that actually the implementation does actually stay in line with their organizational culture and with their long-term goals?
Well, what is a very good and important idea is talk to your people before you take the decision, and once the decision is taken, and explain why, and stay close to the people who are at the front of the business, and let them have a word in there, and then they will have to use it and run with it and be successful with it. But don't make even top-down decisions like out of your executive helicopter, but talk to the people who know the market, who know the customers, who use your potential solution every single day.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Matthias, can companies eventually effectively use future AI tools to enhance diversity and inclusion in their talent acquisition?
I hope. I think so. Especially the area of talent sourcing looks promising. So meaning that if you get the right access to data and understand and map out where talents are, and this becomes a self-fulfilling service where it's just a button or two away until you have your long list, short list, different regions, and so on. I found this very promising, and that can then drive your efforts in that area, because one part of the problem here is talent scarcity of such talents, right? And identifying them already and then trying to approach them and in order to then assess them would go a long way already. Yeah. And another thing is, I hope that this whole assessment part that we've been talking about, so people look at the wrong criteria and make decisions, and that's why they are not seeing any change. If AI can help to actually scale such a decision making by saying, look, we have identified our framework of assessments, and now to ensure that the humans don't mess with it, we'll have AI and technology that helps us to create a consistency and a pattern there. And you keep on training the tool as well. I think every AI solution that you have, please have people responsible for the solution to ensure that there's a sanity check, that it doesn't, that it's get trained better, that you take care of certain criteria. I think the more you manage this and the more you watch it, the more powerful it gets. And this is also what Bärbel said. I think with the executives, when you want to influence executives, you actually create a path for subject matter experts to give them a platform to get exposure to those executives in order for executives to understand how these people can impact their businesses. Yeah. And you as a leader in between need to create and connect the dots and get the right people in front of the right people who make decisions in order to then create that win-win situation. And I think this is something that the people who are subject matter experts or do something, they not only know from the very beginning that this has actually impact. So it needs other people to see this, to see the potential of this, and then create the opportunity for people to meet the right people in the organization in order to create allyship, mentorship, and strategic decision-making in this regard.
Thank you very much for sharing this. Bärbel, if we think of AI tools, not in the HR milieu, but think more of executive presence. How could AI eventually help leaders perform executive presence, be present, and how can this help them in their change management in their companies, especially for big initiatives?
So executive presence, AI has wonderful tools to train your impact, your communication skills. It is a great brainstorming tool to create impactful speeches. I would like to invite executives not only to talk business and figures and numbers, but images and quotes and just have more impact and more connection with the people. So there, AI mainly, what comes to my mind, can be inspiring, can help research and brainstorm. When it comes to change management, you have wonderful opportunities to share information, progress, to celebrate what has already been changed. But in change management, it's depending in which phases you are, it's extremely important to help people keep the future picture inside so that everybody rows into this direction. And as we all know, sometimes it's very difficult when you're in the middle of a change. People start doubt, not everything goes the right way. Maybe we should keep what we have. So you need to keep everybody on track and you need to give vision and hope and encouragement. And therefore, of course, you can public and communicate and appraise and so on more with digital tools. And then maybe you can do every day in a personal way. But there, just use both. And again, be close to people. Talk with each other.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you for sharing this. Matthias, maybe last question. How do you see the integration of AI and data analytics evolving to support employee career development and long-term retention?
Yeah, so apparently AI is very strong in analyzing data. I think the problem that I have or I see is that in order to leverage this AI, we need to actually have a structure and a foundation, an infrastructure that is good enough to really then help AI to really analyze the right things. And I think a lot of people, especially when you look at enterprise data or even data in smaller organizations, it's messy. And a lot of people try to hide it and then say, well, no, you can. I mean, you had one founder who said, well, AI can actually harmonize and structure data. Well, but if you have these unstructured data in toolings, that AI cannot fix, because in the end of the day, these toolings are used again by people who feed the systems with the data. And then if there's no structure or approach, then even AI, yes, you can take this out into a spreadsheet. AI fixes the data for you, and then you can kind of do the analysis. But I do think that, you need to have a data maturity, if that makes sense, in order to really help this. And I had a long conversation with my VP of Finance, who literally claimed to say, look, it is not as analytic as I would like it to be, because you need to understand so many different data sources and then really make a sense out of it. And there are so many failures or flaws in the data sets that if they just blindly analyze this, it's not going to fly as much. It's not as good. But I see potential here, and I think it is again on the topic of what is your data maturity, how much of data can you already provide, and then you can still leverage this ongoing. I would really love to explore AI agents. So imagine they do analyze these data sets and then tell me, Matthias, based on the data that I've been looking at, here's a problem and here are the things of how to fix it. And here's your initiative list to then say, look, these teams need to do this and that in order to then get better data in the next time, right? And I don't think we are far away from this, but again, you need to keep your house in order. You need to come to the plate or to the table with a mature data set in order to leverage AI much faster, and that will be the game changer.
Thank you very much. I really want to say that you both were absolutely amazing guests today. You kept referring to each other. You kept actually helping each other and relating to each other and passing each other the information. I think you are absolutely amazing. I would love to have you both on the show again. But thank you really, really, really. Thank you very much. It was really great having you guys.
Thank you. Likewise, Mark. And hope to do this soon.
Thank you, Mark. It was great meeting you, Matthias. Hope to see you soon again. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.